Beneath a mountain south of Tehran, Iran hid its most dangerous secret. Not inside a concrete bunker, not behind armored walls, inside solid rock, 80 meters of solid granite overhead. Thousands of centrifuges spinning around the clock, enriching uranium. Iranian engineers had done the math. No conventional bomb on Earth could punch through that mountain, full stop. They were wrong, and the United States had already started building the answer, 15 years before Iran even sensed the danger. To understand what happened on the night of June 21st, 2025, you have to go back. Way back. In the early 2000s, US intelligence starts noticing something strange in the Iranian mountains. Excavation, trucks, industrial-scale earth-moving in an area with no logical reason to be that busy. It's the birth of Fordow. The problem is simple to state and almost impossible to solve. America's existing bunker busters, like the GBU-28, nearly 2,300 kilograms of steel and explosive, are built to punch through reinforced concrete, not an entire mountain. Against Fordow, they're toys. For 15 years, just 2 officers from the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the U.S. agency handling nuclear threats, work almost alone on a single question. How do you destroy something nobody ever engineered to be destroyed? The result of that work has an almost bureaucratic name, Massive Ordnance Penetrator, and a much blunter nickname, MOP. The numbers alone tell the story. 14 tons in weight, over 6 meters long. A casing made of ultra-high-density steel alloy, engineered not to explode on impact, but to survive impact, to punch through rock and concrete without shattering, like a giant projectile forcing its way downward. But here's what most people never think about. At the speed the MOP hits the ground, well over 300 meters per second, friction alone generates enough heat to melt ordinary steel in a fraction of a second. Kinetic energy doesn't just push through granite, it superheats the metal skin of the bomb on contact the way a meteor glows white-hot entering the atmosphere. An ordinary bomb casing would deform under that heat. It would flatten, crack, or vaporize before ever reaching its target depth. The MOP's casing is different. A proprietary steel alloy, hardened through a process that keeps its crystalline structure stable even as surface temperatures spike. The metal doesn't need to stay cool, it needs to stay rigid. For the roughly 1/10 of a second it takes to drive through solid rock, long enough for the nose to keep punching downward instead of shattering sideways. That's the entire engineering bet behind the weapon. Survive just long enough, then explode exactly on schedule. Inside, a surprisingly modest explosive charge for something that heavy. The real destructive power doesn't come from the explosive. It comes from the mass and velocity driving through the rock. And then there's the detail that sets this bomb apart from anything else. A smart fuse capable of counting the layers the bomb passes through and detonating only when it reaches the exact intended depth. Not a meter too soon, not a meter too late. But a 14-ton weapon creates a completely different problem. How do you even get it there? No fighter jet on Earth can lift it. There's exactly one aircraft in the world that can. The B-2 Spirit isn't just a bomber. It's one of the most expensive machines ever built by human hands, and one of the most secretive. Each aircraft cost the United States roughly $2 billion. Not the program, not the fleet, one single airframe. For that price, you could buy an entire squadron of modern fighter jets and still have money left over. Most of that cost isn't the airframe itself, it's the skin. The B-2 stealth coating, the material that scatters radar waves instead of reflecting them back to an enemy screen, is so delicate that the aircraft can't simply sit outside like a normal bomber. Humidity, rain, even direct sunlight can degrade it. Every B-2 lives inside a climate-controlled hangar, and after every single flight, technicians spend hours, sometimes days, inspecting and repairing microscopic damage to that radar-absorbent surface before the jet is allowed to fly again. The United States only ever built 21 of these aircraft. Only 19 remain in service today, which makes what happened next almost reckless on paper. 7 B-2s, more than a third of the entire operational fleet, committed to a single mission, flying deep into hostile airspace on the same night. If even one had been shot down, The US wouldn't just lose a crew and an aircraft worth billions, it would lose an irreplaceable sliver of its entire stealth bomber force, a capability that takes decades, not years, to rebuild. That's the size of the bet Washington made, and it tells you everything about how seriously the Pentagon viewed the target underneath that mountain. But for this mission, the B-2's most important feature isn't stealth, it's the bomb bay. Every B-2 has 2 weapons bays, and each bay can carry exactly 1 MOP. 2 bombs, 14 tons each per aircraft, not one more. To hit Fordow the way America had planned, 1 B-2 wouldn't be enough. It would take 7, and each one would have to fly for 18 straight hours without ever landing deep into the heart of the Middle East. June 21st, 2025. Whiteman Air Force Base, Missouri. 7 B-2 bombers take off into the dark. Their families don't know where they're headed. Many crew members say goodbye to loved ones without knowing if or when they'll come home. But those 7 B-2s aren't alone. Around them, the U.S. Air Force deploys over 125 support aircraft, F-35 and F-22 fighters clearing the airspace ahead of the formation. Dozens of aerial refueling tankers and, as a decoy, 2 additional B-2s sent in the opposite direction toward the Pacific to throw off anyone watching. That refueling alone is an operation within the operation. Somewhere over the Atlantic, in complete radio silence, a tanker aircraft has to find a stealth bomber in the dark, match its speed within a few knots, and hold a fixed position just meters away while thousands of liters of fuel pass through a single boom, all without triggering a single radar signature that could give away the formation's position. One mistake in timing, one deviation in altitude, and the entire element of surprise could unravel hours before the bombers ever reach Iranian airspace. And somewhere on the other side of the planet, foreign early warning systems are watching the sky. Russian and Chinese satellite and radar networks routinely track American strategic bomber movements. It's part of the normal background noise of global military surveillance. That night, the deception plan isn't just about hiding from Iran. It's about making sure that anyone else watching those radar returns sees nothing that looks like an imminent strike. No unusual concentration of tankers, no flight path that breaks from routine patrol patterns, nothing that would trigger a warning call to Tehran before the bombers are already inside Iranian airspace. Meanwhile, beneath the sea, a U.S. submarine waits in silence, ready to strike a third target with a barrage of Tomahawk cruise missiles. But in the days before the strike, Iran senses something is moving, and does the only thing it can, tries to seal the mountain's ventilation shafts with meters-thick reinforced concrete plugs. It has no idea it's about to make a fatal mistake. Here's the detail almost nobody in Iran had considered. Punching through 80 meters of pure granite straight down is physically impossible, even for the MOP. American analysts have known that for years, so they don't even try. Instead, they target something much simpler: the facility's ventilation shafts. Every underground bunker to function needs air, and that air has to move in and out somewhere. Those shafts become the target. The sequence is surgical. The lead B-2 drops 2 MOPs on the same aim point. The first bomb blasts off the concrete cap Iran had just installed, blowing the opening wide. The following bombs, released in rapid succession by other aircraft, enter the same shaft at over 300 meters per second, each one driving a little deeper than the last. 6 bombs on each of Fordow's 2 main shafts, 2 more on Natanz, the second nuclear site, hit that night. In total, 14 MOPs dropped in just 25 minutes. But the real question isn't how many bombs fell. It's what happens when they detonate, 80 meters under a mountain. When an MOP detonates inside rock, it doesn't just produce fire. It produces what military engineers call overpressure, a shock wave that travels through the rock itself, compressing the air inside the tunnels far beyond anything the human body or ordinary machinery was built to survive. In an open field, a blast wave dissipates outward in every direction, losing power with distance. Inside a sealed tunnel, it has nowhere to go. The pressure wave bounces off walls, funnels down corridors, and compounds on itself, arriving at distant chambers not weaker but sometimes stronger than it started. For anyone caught inside that confined space, the effect on the human body is almost instantaneous. Overpressure doesn't just knock people down, it moves through the body itself, rupturing the delicate air-filled tissue of the lungs and eardrums in the same instant it crosses them. Organs designed to hold a stable pressure suddenly forced to absorb a shock they were never built to withstand. Death or catastrophic injury can occur before anyone even hears the blast that caused it. For the facility itself, the effect is just as violent. Steel support beams don't need to be struck directly. The shockwave alone can bend and snap reinforced structural members. Concrete walls don't crack. They shatter into fragments and become secondary shrapnel, hurled through corridors by the pressure wave itself. And the centrifuges, thousands of them, delicate, precisely balanced machines spinning at supersonic rotational speeds to separate uranium isotopes, are among the most fragile pieces of equipment on Earth. They don't require a direct hit. A vibration measured in fractions of a millimeter arriving at the wrong moment in their rotation cycle is enough to tear them apart from the inside. One B-2 pilot, after the strike, would describe the flash of the explosion as the brightest thing he'd ever seen in his life. "It looked like daylight," he said. But here's the twist nobody fully expected, not even inside the Pentagon. In the hours that follow, the White House calls it a total success. Iran's nuclear sites obliterated. But an internal Defense Intelligence Agency report, leaked days later, tells a more cautious story. According to that assessment, some of the enriched uranium and the most sensitive equipment may have been moved before the strike, quietly relocated in advance. Satellite images show massive craters along the mountain ridge, blocked entrances, a hillside that looks genuinely reshaped. But what actually happened in the deepest chambers, 80 meters below the surface, remains largely classified. And that's exactly where the most unsettling lesson of this whole story is hiding. For years, Iran believed that digging deeper meant being safe. That depth alone was a guarantee. That night in June proved otherwise, but it also proved something more uncomfortable. No weapon, no matter how sophisticated, guarantees total, permanent destruction. Digging deeper buys time. It doesn't buy immunity. And in a region where time alone can shift the balance of an entire war, that difference between destroying and delaying might be the most important part of this whole story. If this breakdown kept you watching until now, subscribe. Every week we cover the military operations that reshape the balance of power around the world. Grounded in facts, in documents, no exaggeration.